You always see stuff like time traveling on movies or TV shows, but it doesn't happen in real life, right?
My name is Viktor Nikolaev, and I was born in the year 2133.
Well, you might be wrong. This time, Traveler's Diary was just discovered, and it had some pretty crazy details inside. 1. Andrew Carlson. In 2003, a guy named Andrew Carlson caught the attention of the FBI after the SEC got suspicious of his stock trading. It was mainly because he turned an 800-lot investment into a whopping $350 million in just 2 weeks. When questioned, Carlson, who was 44 at the time, came up with a wild story. He claimed he was a time traveler from 200 years in the future, and that's how he knew exactly what moves to make in the stock market. According to sources, the SEC wasn't buying it, but they couldn't deny the fact that every trade he made was perfectly timed to take advantage of unexpected business events, which seemed way too lucky to be a coincidence. The SEC believed Carlson must have used illegal insider information, so they planned to keep him locked up at Rikers Island until he revealed his sources. But to this day, no one knows if it was luck or actual time traveling. After some investigation, they did find a diary that showed all the methods he was using for time travel, but no one really believed any of it. 2. The modern hipster. These days, it's hard to define what a hipster really is, but if you see one, you just know it. Hipsters are usually seen as a modern thing, and you wouldn't think they existed back in the day. But there's this one photo from 1941 that might change your mind about when hipster fashion actually started. The photo was taken in British Columbia, and it shows a crowd of people wearing typical 1940s outfits. However, one guy in the crowd stands out. He looks way ahead of his time. While everyone else is in old-school clothes, this man is rocking sunglasses, a graphic t-shirt, and a cardigan. He even has a haircut that looks surprisingly modern, almost like something you'd see today. It's hard to believe this guy could be from the 1940s, but the photo has been confirmed to be from that time period, and there's no sign it's been edited or altered. So, it's left a lot of people wondering, could this be proof of time travel? 3. Peter DeHooch smartphone. We usually think of cell phones and smartphones as pretty modern inventions, but there are some strange cases where they seem to show up in the past. Take this painting by Peter DeHooch from 1670, for example. At first glance, it looks like a typical painting from that time. The art style, clothing, and everything else fits right in with the 1600s. But if you take a closer look, there's something odd. The teenager standing on the right seems to be holding a smartphone. He's staring down at it, just like how teens today do with their phones, and it's pretty weird to see in such an old painting. If you squint, you might even be able to make out some little app icons, almost like it's an iPhone. What's even stranger is that the woman, the little girl, and even the dog all seem to be fascinated by what the teen is holding. It's like they're all checking out this phone he has. 4. Cell phone at Charlie Chaplin movie. Charlie Chaplin was a huge comedy star in the 20th century, known for his classic performances and amazing films. One movie of his, The Circus, came out in 1928 and is full of his famous antics. But there's one particular frame from the film that's really got people talking. In the background of the scene, there's a woman in an all-black outfit who's caught holding something that looks just like a cell phone up to her ear. She's holding it like she's in the middle of a phone conversation, which is pretty strange since cell phones didn't exist back then. This mysterious object she's holding looks a lot like a modern cell phone, and it's raising all kinds of questions. Of course, the picture quality from the 1920s isn't the best, so it's hard to tell exactly what it is. Some people even wonder if she might be a time traveler caught on film by accident, but we'll probably never know. 5. 1898. Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg is a name everyone knows by now. She's the teen who's become a major force in fighting for climate change and raising awareness about saving our planet. At just 21 years old, she's done more for climate issues than most people ever could. But there's a photo from 1898 that's got people wondering if Greta might be older than we think. This old photo shows 3 kids working at a gold mine in Canada's Yukon Territory. What's really caught people's attention is one of the girls in the picture. She looks just like Greta Thunberg. Seriously, her facial features and expressions are almost identical to Greta's. So, could it be that Greta is some kind of time traveler sent to warn us about how we're ruining the planet? Or is it just an uncanny look-alike? 6. Woman using her phone in 1938. You've probably seen lots of photos claiming to show time travelers, but here's one of the few videos that might just prove it. This video from 1938 shows a couple of women strolling down the street. At first, it looks pretty normal, but then you notice something weird about one of the women right in the middle. She's smiling and holding what looks like a cell phone to her ear, and she's chatting away like she's on a call. What's even stranger is that no one around her seems to be reacting or even acknowledging her conversation. When she's done, she just puts the cell phone back in her pocket, just like we do today. This video really makes you wonder if this woman could be a time traveler who somehow ended up back in the 1930s. After seeing it, it's hard to ignore how out of place that phone seems. 7. World Cup flip phone. The 1962 FIFA World Cup in Chile was a huge deal, especially because Brazil won the trophy for the second time in a row. It's one of the most memorable moments for Brazilian soccer fans. But there's another iconic moment from this World Cup that people don't often talk about. There's this photo from the event where you see a Brazilian player proudly holding up the World Cup trophy. There are tons of cameras around snapping pictures, but one camera stands out. In the middle of the photo, there's a person holding what looks like a flip phone, taking a picture of the player. If you zoom in on the screen of this phone, you can actually see the player's image on it. But the thing is, this was in 1962, way before cell phones and long before flip phones with cameras even existed. 8. Phone during World War II. Iceland is known for being super tech-savvy today, but it looks like they might have been ahead of their time even back in the 1940s. There's an old photo from Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, taken during World War II, when foreign soldiers were stationed there. The photo shows a typical city scene from that era, but there's one guy who really catches the eye. This man is dressed in a white trench coat and a hat, and he's holding something up to his ear that looks like a phone. What's more, he has this odd and serious look on his face. Some people think he might be a time-traveling spy, chatting away on a futuristic phone. Others argue that he could just be adjusting his hair or holding something else. 9. The astronaut sculpture in Spain. Before the 20th century, astronauts were definitely not a thing. Yuri Gagarin was the first person to go to space in 1961, and he made the whole astronaut uniform famous. Today, we all recognize those iconic spacesuits. But there's a weird twist with a sculpture in Spain that makes you wonder if we knew about astronauts way earlier than we thought. This carving is on the walls of a cathedral in Salamanca, Spain, which was built way back in the 1500s. What's really strange is that the carving looks just like a modern astronaut. It shows an astronaut with a helmet, boots, and the full spacesuit, pretty much exactly like what we see today. So the big question is, did someone time travel back to share what astronauts look like, or was this sculpture added later to the old cathedral? 10. The Cape Scott Story, Time Traveler. The Cape Scott Story is a book from the 1970s, packed with real photos from the early 20th century. Most of the pictures fit right in with the time period they're supposed to show. But there's one photo that's pretty unusual. The photo, dated 1917, shows a group of people sitting on a hill. Everyone else in the picture is dressed in typical clothing from that era: hats, coats, and dress shirts. But there's one guy right in the middle who looks totally out of place. He's wearing modern clothes that wouldn't seem out of place today: an oversized black t-shirt, shorts, and even a trendy hairstyle that looks like something you'd see on a TikTok teenager. His outfit and style are so different from everyone else's that it's hard not to notice. It's like he's a time traveler who accidentally ended up in a photo from 1917. His look stands out so much that it makes you wonder how he ended up in that old photo. 11. Time traveler at Mike Tyson's fight in 1995. Mike Tyson might not be super old, but he started his boxing career a long time ago, way before cell phones with cameras were a thing. Yet, there's a weird moment in a 1995 fight between Tyson and Peter McNeely. In one of the shots from the crowd, there's someone holding up what looks like a big smartphone recording the fight. Well, here's the thing. This phone looks just like a Samsung Galaxy S3, which didn't come out until 2013. It's pretty mind-blowing because there's no way someone had a Galaxy S3 back in 1995. People are scratching their heads trying to figure out how this could be possible. Was it a bizarre fluke, or is there something else going on? Either way, it's definitely a strange sight to see a modern-looking phone in an old fight. 12. Adidas trainers. Adidas is a huge name in the shoe world, selling billions of pairs since it was founded in 1949. So, it's a pretty old company, but not ancient. But here's the kicker. There's a photo of a 1,000-year-old Turkic mummy found in ancient Mongolia, and it looks like it's wearing Adidas trainers. Back when this mummy was buried, shoes were super rare in Mongolia, let alone modern-looking ones. Yet, the shoes on this mummy look exactly like the designs you can find on Adidas' website today. 13. The Greek laptop. Laptops are a pretty recent invention, only showing up in the last 20 or so years. And if you think about it, computers weren't even around 100 years ago. So, it's crazy to think that a Greek carving from thousands of years ago, called Grave Niskos, of an enthroned woman with an attendant, might show something that looks like a laptop. In the carving, there's a small girl holding what really looks like a laptop in front of a woman. What's even wilder is that this ancient laptop seems to have what looks like charging or USB ports on it. Some people try to explain it away as a hollow chest or something similar, but the resemblance is pretty striking. It's so strange to see something that looks so modern in a piece of art from ancient Greece. Maybe it's just a really weird coincidence, or maybe it's a hint that a time traveler got caught in the artwork. 14. Alex Schall's shed. Alex Schall, an Airbnb host in Florida, had to pull his listing after a crazy incident with what he believes might be a time traveler. Schall posted a video on TikTok showing a young man mysteriously disappearing in his backyard shed. In the video, you see this guy, wearing a white t-shirt and shorts, stroll into the shed and then vanish. The next day, an older man, who looked eerily similar to the first one, walked out of the shed. Schall, who lives 5 hours away from the property, tried to scare off the intruder using a remote speaker, but he didn't see anything on his cameras. He called the cops, but they found nothing. The next day, the security system alerted him to the older man leaving the shed. The video went viral, racking up millions of views, and Schall's life was turned upside down. He had to take the property off Airbnb because of the flood of prank calls and weird messages he was getting. Schall, who used to share real estate tips on TikTok, now has almost 150,000 followers. The whole thing has left him stressed and wondering why no one can figure out who the men in the videos are. 15. Ancient Egyptian fighter jets. The idea that ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs might show fighter jets or spacecraft seems impossible since they didn't exist back then. But this theory suggests that some ancient carvings, when looked at with a modern perspective, resemble today's technology, like fighter jets or spaceships. The theory focuses on hieroglyphs found in the temples of Abydos and Dendera. Some people think these carvings depict advanced flying machines. For example, a carving in the Abydos temple looks like a plane with a long cylindrical body and wing-like structures, which some say resembles a modern fighter jet. Another example is from the Dendera temple, known as the Dendera Light. This carving looks like a large bulb-shaped object, which some believe might represent advanced technology or energy sources. Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory think these hieroglyphs show evidence of technology from extraterrestrial beings. They suggest that the ancient Egyptians might have had contact with aliens who shared their tech, which the Egyptians then included in their art. 16. Ancient Rolex. In 2008, archaeologists and journalists were exploring a tomb from the Ming Dynasty in Shanxi, southern China. While clearing soil from one of the coffins, they heard a metallic sound and found a ring, which turned out to be a watch. This watch had a modern look, complete with the word Swiss engraved on it. The watch's hands showed the time as 6:10. This is a problem because Switzerland was only officially established in 1848, long after the Ming Dynasty, which ended in 1644. The artifact seems way too modern for the era. Some think the tomb might not have been as sealed as believed, and maybe tomb raiders or explorers left the watch there. Another theory is that rodents might have brought the watch into the tomb. The whole situation remains a mystery with a lot of unanswered questions. There's not much info on who was involved in the excavation or any details about the tomb. 17. iPhone in the 1860s. A painting from the mid-19th century is getting a lot of attention because it looks like a woman is holding an iPhone. The painting, called The Expected One, was created by Ferdinand Georg Waldmüller in 1860. It's currently on display at the Neue Pinakothek Museum in Germany. In the painting, there's a woman walking through a scene with something in her hand, while a man waits nearby with flowers. If you look at it with a modern perspective, it kind of seems like the woman is holding a smartphone, like an iPhone. Obviously, this is surprising because iPhones weren't around back then. Some people even thought the person who painted this might be a time traveler, but who knows the real truth. 18. Mural from the future. A lot of people were left confused over an 86-year-old mural that seems to show a Native American holding an iPhone. The mural, titled Mr. Pinchon and the Settling of Springfield, was painted by Umberto Romano in 1937 and hasn't been touched since. In the bottom right corner of the artwork, there's a man holding what looks just like a modern smartphone. He's even holding it the way we do today, thumb on one side, fingers on the back, as if he's scrolling through social media. The mural is part of a series and hangs in the Massachusetts State Office Building in Springfield. Unfortunately, Romano, the Italian artist behind the mural, passed away in 1982, long before iPhones were a thing, so we can't ask him what that figure is supposed to be holding. The painting actually depicts English colonist William Pinchon trading with Native Americans in Springfield, Massachusetts, back in the 17th century. 19. The Unknown Demonstration. In 2012, a guy posted a video on YouTube showing some pretty weird photos he got from his uncle. The strange thing is that even though he got these pictures in 2012, they show a protest happening in 2016. The protest is against some kind of time travel program and is focused on a particular politician. At first, people thought this politician might be running for president, but we now know that's not the case. And since the year in the photos is 2016, it means that if this protest was supposed to happen, it did actually happen. 20. The Phantom Car. This was recorded from the dashboard of a car, and it shows a really strange moment where another car seems to just appear out of nowhere. Some people think the weird appearance of the car might be explained by camera angles or other technical stuff. That's a fair point. But what makes this even stranger is the reaction of the driver in the video. When the car suddenly shows up, the driver reacts as if the car really did just materialize out of thin air. It's like they're completely surprised, which makes you wonder if something odd was actually going on. The way the car seems to pop into view and the driver's reaction make this video particularly hard to explain. 21. UFO in ancient artwork. The painting, called Glorification of the Eucharist, was done by Ventura Salimbeni in 1595. It shows Jesus, the Father, and the Holy Ghost, but there's something odd in the background. A blue sphere with spikes sticking out of it. Some people think this might look like Sputnik, the first satellite that orbited Earth in 1957. Steve Mera, who runs the Manchester Association of Paranormal Investigation and Training and is into paranormal stuff, mentioned at a conference that there's a curious link between religious art and UFOs. He pointed out that the painting from the 1600s has this weird blue sphere that seems surprisingly like Sputnik. He noted that the little bump on the side of the object in the painting is just like the bump on Sputnik. Of course, Salimbeni couldn't have known about Sputnik back then, but it does spark the question: could they have had some kind of knowledge about future events? Most experts think it's unlikely. They believe the blue sphere in the painting is actually a symbol of the universe, with the spikes representing God's power over it. 22. Nicolas Cage, time traveling. The idea that Nicolas Cage might be a time traveler or even an immortal vampire seems pretty weird. Well, it all started with a photo that popped up on eBay in 2011, showing someone who looks exactly like Cage from the Civil War era. Now, there's even more evidence with a drawing from a Mexican history book that seems to show Cage. A Reddit user found this drawing in a book about the 19th century Mexican emperor Maximilian III, and the resemblance to Cage is uncanny. If you search for pictures of Maximilian Y, he really does look a lot like Cage. Some people joke that Cage might be everyone, and everyone might be Cage. Cage isn't the only celebrity with a historical doppelganger or a rumored time travel backstory. Keanu Reeves has apparently shown up in history books from 1570 and 1875, while John Travolta is said to be a reincarnated figure from the 1860s. Alec Baldwin has been linked to both a former Elks Lodge president and a Norwegian government member. 23. Time travelers or aliens. In October 2008, Shane Silver, who managed a hotel close to the falls, and a security guard saw a huge triangular UFO outside the hotel. Shortly after that, two guys dressed in black suits showed up at the hotel. These guys were super tall, looked exactly the same, had very pale skin, and didn't have any eyebrows or eyelashes, which made them look pretty unsettling. The hotel staff was really spooked by these strange visitors, who seemed to know way too much about what had happened. One of the hotel employees even said it felt like the men in black could read her thoughts. Some people think they might have been time travelers. 24. Time-traveling man. In this video from Russia, a guy in a lab coat suddenly appears out of nowhere and causes a truck to swerve to avoid hitting him. The scene is pretty confusing because the truck comes dangerously close to crashing into other cars. As the truck swerves, the camera catches the man in the lab coat standing there, looking completely calm and relaxed. It's like he just walked right in front of the truck without a care in the world. Some people think he might be someone from the future who messed with time travel and ended up in the wrong place. The fact that he reacts so nonchalantly after nearly getting run over makes the whole thing even stranger. So do you think time traveling is real? Will there ever be more time travelers in the future or the past?